Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I built these three setups for three different species of monitor lizards. So the things that we're going to use for this build are some styrofoam. Next we need one plastic tub like this to mix the soil. Then we need a bucket to mix the tile cement. We need tile cement. We need some clay and we need some cocoa fiber like this one. So next we're going to need a brush. Then we're going to need a knife or an extractor knife. And optional, we're going to use a hot wire cutter. So if you regularly build some setups, I would recommend you to get one of those things. Because you can get really nice contours into the styrofoam, and it also makes things a little faster. So this is what it looks like. You have your converter, and then you have your hot wire cutter. You can regulate the heat of the wire. I always have it on full power. There's the wire. You can bend it as you want it, and then you can just cut straight out of the foam. So I'm going to show you which glue I used to put in the styrofoam boards. This was a glue which is used for construction works of any kind. I had one problem, which was that I forgot to record the initial placements of the styrofoam boards, but as you can imagine, I just put the styrofoam boards onto the glass panels. I trimmed it on the side and the back panels, also on the top of the single panels there. That way you can make sure to get the tile glue, the tile cement into every crack of the background, which is important because you don't want to have any areas without the tile cement, because that way your feeders can burrow inside of the styrofoam and nest there, and that is absolutely horrible. So as you can see here, I just placed some random styrofoam boards onto the back wall, just like so. Use a little bit more of it so that you can cut off of it later on. In the next part, you can see how I cut out the styrofoam in the way that I like it. I used the hot wire for that. The good thing by using a hot wire is that you don't produce these kind of styrofoam balls which you always have when you cut the styrofoam with a regular knife. By cutting it with the wire, as you can see, you don't have that problem. And another cool thing about the hot wire is that you can remove quite a lot of the material in a pretty fast way. As you can see here, I have glued in some pretty broad pieces of styrofoam onto the lower part of the vivarium. You should make sure that you trim those off pretty heavily, because remember you have to put the tile cement on it, and you always want to make sure that you can reach all areas with that. So as you can see, next I mixed up the tile cement with water, and then I used a little bit of tinting color. I like to use this for every layer of the setup, by going from pretty dark colors, like now I have used some black, to brighter colors as I go. For this setup, as I will use these three terrariums for the baby monitors which I have, so they're going to stay there in there for like maybe 5 or 6 months. You don't need that many layers. I used 3 layers for this one. Regularly, if I build bigger setups for the big monitors, I use at least 4 to 5 layers of the mixture. So on we go to the next layer, in which I used lighter colors and a little bit more of red colors. I didn't have the time to wait until the first layer dried, but if you do that, please make sure to let the first layer dry until you make the next one. Alright guys, now I'm going to show you how I mix up the ground mix for my desert dwelling animals. For that we're going to use some plain old play sand. Pour it in. So, I like to use these tubs for mixing the ground mix, because if you do it like that, you can just mix it all in pretty nice without having to mix it in the vivariums. I have found a pack of red sand which I used some months ago, so I'll dump that in also. Then we're going to take some cocoa peat. The important thing, in my opinion, is clay. By using clay, you make sure that the sand mixture will be as it is in nature, and the sand particles won't be loose in the setup, so that way you don't get any problems with your animals taking in some sand particles and get ill. So use that stuff. Normally you can use the clay in a ratio of 5 to 25 of sand, from sand, but I use a little bit more. I like it when the ground mix is kind of hard and like a real desert or steppe bottom. So we mix all through. Good thing is that the sand is kind of moist, and that way it all mixes in pretty nice. You can also add some leaf litter. So as you can see, we didn't even mix it up thoroughly, but even now, when you take the mix and you press it, it becomes hard, just like that. And that is the texture you want. If the sand you're using is too dry, you can also just wet it down a little and give it a good mix. The cocoa fiber we used in here helps us to get the humidity levels right. Even though it will be a desert setup or a kind of arid setup, you always need a little bit of moisture inside of your setups. At least one part of it should always be a little bit more moist than the other sections. So as you can see now, we have pretty nice texture. If you can do this, your mixture is right. Alright guys, before we are going to mix the leaf litter in it, we're going to take 2 hands of the dirt mixture we have here into our bucket, or maybe a little bit more. Yeah, 2. I didn't get any leaf litter, so I didn't have any leaf litter yet, but I'm going to use a little bit of the leaf litter which I used in another setup. So this is how our ground mixture looks like now. See, we have the clay in it, we have the sand and cocoa fiber. So the reason why I showed you how I make the ground mixture is because for the last layer of the back wall, we will use parts of the ground mixture also. So we have the tile cement, we have our colors, and now we're going to add a little bit of the dirt mixture, which will give the back wall a pretty nice texture and it will increase the naturalistic look of it. So after I put the last layer of the tile cement onto the background and let it dry for 24 hours, I went on to the hardscape of this setup. So in this setup, this will house 2 young animals of Varanus pilbarensis, which are Pilbara rock monitors. So I added 2 pieces of driftwood which I found, and also included live plants like I do in almost all of my setups. Here I used Calocephalus browni, which is a native plant to Australia, and the last part is to add a little bit of rocks and also the water dish. So the next one is for a pair of dwarf mulga monitors, which are Varanus gilleni. This one I also set up pretty similar to the first one, just I was using some yucca stems. And on we go to the final setup, which will house 3 babies of Varanus tristis orientalis. This one I also set it up just like the first one. So the very final step was to make the setups bioactive. Here I use some Cuban isopods, which I like to use in my more arid setups. I just sprinkled those into all of the setups, and yeah, the animals will also eat them, but just give them time to search for little heights in which they can disappear. Of course, no bioactive setup will be complete without springtails, so I added these little guys also. These ones will also clean your setups. They will take care of poop and other residues or leaf litter that you get in there, so don't forget to use those. You can blow them in just like you can see me doing here, or you can also just take, I don't know, a little handful of the dirt and sprinkle it onto the bedding that you have in your setups. All right, guys, thank you for sticking around with me. I hope you had fun with this tutorial. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell to get notifications whenever I post some new videos. Also, make sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. You can DM me there. And following, I will include some clips of the animals after they moved into their new enclosures. These enclosures will be used, like as I said, for a few months until they will grow, and then they will need bigger ones. And stay tuned for the build of those. Yeah, thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.